Hello, and welcome to this month's Community Talk. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to remind you that you can always view our past talks on both the Summit Pacific YouTube channel, as well as right here on our Facebook webpage or our Facebook page. In March, we had a trio of local experts who walked us through parenting preschoolers. It was a really nice talk, and if you didn't see it, I encourage you to go back and to view it. But today's talk is going to take our preschoolers and follow them through and address parenting with a focus on an older age group, the teenage years. Today, we're delighted to have Lynn Wakeman, who is a licensed mental health counselor and specialist in children's mental health. And she's going to talk to us about parenting our older youth. But before we get there, let me tell you about her background. Lynn earned her master's degree in counseling from the Washington State University, and she currently is a manager who works with families at Connections in Montesano. She is in charge of all the parenting, education, and mental health programs. And she's here to share with you parenting through the teenage years. Lynn, welcome to our talk.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody that's tuning in today. I appreciate you being here and listening to what I have to share. Hopefully it will be useful to you. And I've got a slideshow I'm going to start in a minute, but I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about who I am and what I do. So as Cindy said, I am a licensed mental health counselor associate, and I specialize in serving children, youth actually, of all ages. And what that entails is also helping parents in being their best self, working with their children. So I've been doing that for quite a while. And when I was approached to talk about something related to youth, I was kind of caught off guard. I don't do a lot of public speaking, and I don't consider myself particularly expert in anything, but as I reflected on the work I've done, I would say that working with teenagers is my favorite group of kids to work with. So some people might think that's kind of crazy because I think generally speaking, we think of teenagers as being difficult or challenging, and I just really enjoy them. Maybe I'm stuck in my adolescence, I'm not sure, but it is a population that I really enjoy working with. So I thought I would just share some information about adolescence. I thought if we talked about adolescence and the whole point of it, hopefully it would help parents to kind of look at their children differently in that stage of life and make parenting just a little less stressful. So hopefully you get something out of this today. So let me see if I can get my slideshow pulled up and begin sharing with you. So I guess I've already kind of talked about who I am and what I've done. I've been doing counseling for about 24 years. And like I said, working with adolescents is my favorite. But what I wanted to say to begin with is that we're all growing and developing throughout our lifespan. And there's many stages of our life, and there's a particular point to those different stages. And so I wanted to kind of start with, let's see, my slideshow is not moving forward. Let's see what I can do here real quick. Try it again. I apologize. Bear with me. This is not my area of expertise, technology that is. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not moving. Let's see if I try this again. All right, so as I was saying that we are growing and maturing through our entire life, and there's a whole area of study about this called human development, and it's the branch of psychology that attempts to understand people and how they develop and grow and change throughout life. One particular psychologist who studied this was Erik Erikson, and he explained life, our development over life, as being impacted by our social experiences, and he kind of looked at what that did to our development. And he postulated that people develop through 8 stages of life, each with a specific task. So, like I said, there's a point to what we go through, biologically speaking. We have certain things we're supposed to accomplish in our time here. So he had 8 stages that he said that we go through, and you can see those here on the screen, beginning with infancy. Then we go into toddlerhood, and you can see that there's themes or, again, tasks or something we're supposed to accomplish during that time. I'm not going to go into all of these individually, but these were just what he theorized. I don't know that there's any hard science to really confirm this, but this is just the general school of thought, I think, in human development. So toddlerhood, preschool, the early school years, and what we've come to think of adolescence as stage 5. But I would kind of suggest that our adolescence starts in these early school years, near the end, around 5th, 6th grade. So you might still be in elementary school when you enter adolescence, and I'll break that down a little bit more when we get to some of the future slides. But adolescence, and then early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. So if we were able to interact today, I would probably poll the audience and get some ideas of how you think of teenagers. I'd like to hear words that speak to you about what it's like to interact with an adolescent, or what you think of when you think of adolescence, or maybe even what you think of when you reflect on your own adolescence. And so because I can't poll you, I did kind of ask some of my friends to give me some words that come to mind for them when they think of teenagers. And like I said, I have this general impression through the work that I've done over the years that maybe parents, adults, don't always think the most positive about teenagers, that they see them as, again, difficult. As you can see, some of the words here are challenging or unpredictable, competitive and argumentative. Some teenagers are more dramatic. And we can put a positive spin. I think how we think, where our mind goes, so do our actions and our attitudes. And so I hope that maybe understanding a little bit more about what teenage years, the time of adolescence is about, that we might shift our thinking a little bit and think about it more positively. There are some really great words in here too, like being autonomous and independent, loyal, driven and resilient. Our young people are many great things. And I believe adolescence is a really fun, exciting time. It poses its challenges as a parent, or maybe a teacher, or somebody working with teens, but it's also a time of great growth. And if you think about all the things teenagers have to do as they mature through their teenage years, coming an adult, it's really a big job. And of course, we as parents have a really big job also in helping them with that. So I thought this was a little humorous. I found this online, and I thought you all might appreciate it, that we're all looking for those answers, those cheat codes, or those tips and tricks to work with young people, teenagers, because it's really hard. And so I know that my parents found parenting me sometimes challenging and difficult, and I have 2 teenagers at home, and while it's fun, there are moments when it's less fun. So I'm going to just give you a brief overview because I said there is a point to adolescence. There's a reason that we go through this stage of life. There are tasks that we need to accomplish. And so here's kind of just a brief list of what we generally in the field think of as being the point of adolescence, that we are going to reach sexual maturation. Our bodies are going to go through a maturation process. Young people will start to develop romantic interests in someone and be interested in having a relationship. And I think that's something that follows many of us into adulthood, but this is the start of it. Teenage years is really kind of the start of it. The whole point, I think, of adolescence is to find yourself, to discover who you are and what's important to you and who you will be, and develop your own value system. And so in order to do that, we do have to kind of establish greater independence and autonomy. And that is a point of adolescence, is to kind of become our own, separate from our family of origin. And finally, we're going to be developing a greater amount of responsibility and our personal values. So if you think about all the sorts of things that go into maturing into being an adult, some cultures recognize that transition with a celebration. Quinceañeras and bar and bat mitzvahs are traditional celebrations of moving from being a young girl or boy into being a young woman or man. And if you think in our culture about just all the things that are expected that we would do and develop and grow into as far as our moving into adulthood, we're going to have to get jobs and a driver's license and graduate from high school. Maybe not in that order, but just think of all the tasks that we are going to take on. This is the time in life where we would start experimenting with that and learning about it. And it's good that we have parents, because parents can be a safety net while we're doing that, so that we're not just thrust out into the world and expected to know what to do. So teenage development, adolescent development is kind of broken down into 3 parts. And it's one big stage, but we kind of go through 3 different mini stages in that progression. And so experts kind of think of early adolescence as being, like I said, if you may start to see preteen behaviors, we call them tweens now, at 10 years old is kind of the general thinking on this. And so 10 to 13 is our early adolescence. Our middle adolescence is 14 to 17 generally. These aren't hard, fast numbers, but just generally this is kind of how we think about it. And then late adolescence, believe it or not, even though at 18 we're considered an adult, we are still growing and developing through into adulthood. So 18 to 21 is late adolescence, and we may have expectations of our youth to be ready to launch into the world sooner than people are really capable of. And I think we're, over the years, kind of as parents, looking differently at how that happens. In years previous, I think the way the world worked, that people went into being on their own and having an income more quickly than we do now. But again, this if you think about these different stages and what might be going on for someone as they're growing and developing, again, there's these rites of passages, or these things that are probably happening for us. In middle adolescence, we're learning to drive and getting a driver's license. We might start working, depending on whether we have some employment skills and whether or not someplace will hire us before we're 18. And then, we're graduating from high school and starting to work so that we can earn an income, and we might be going to college to get that training for our future career. So those are the stages of development. And then it's also broken down into different areas of development. So there are aspects of our growth that you can see in different areas of our life. So biologically and physically is one area that we're gonna go through these stages. Cognitive, intellectual, our brain development. That's going to be another aspect of our adolescent growth. And then social and emotionally, we're going to experience certain things in the world that are typical for us as we are growing up and changing. So I'm going to start with biological and physical development. This one's pretty straightforward and obvious. We're all kind of familiar with this. This isn't something that we really need to be trained in and taught about because we can obviously see that more concretely happening. It's external to us. We can look at it and tangibly talk about it. And so we all know that boys and girls are going to change and go through puberty, and that means certain things happening to the body. That, you know, often you're going to see kids start to gain some weight. You know, I think of adolescents. I know that, you know, they kind of get a little chubby and plump, and then the next thing you know, they're just lean, and sometimes that happens a few times throughout the teenage years where you're thinking, you know, wow, that kiddo's really put on some weight, and then, you know, it turns to muscle, and so those are kinds of things you see. Growth in height and things that are less desirable, you know, the growth of hair, and we sweat more and we get more oily and greasy, often to a young person's dismay. And girls' bodies typically mature more quickly. You'll see them reach their fullest potential usually at middle adolescence, whereas boys may continue to see physical changes in their bodies clear up into adulthood, or what we call adulthood, at that late adolescent stage. Some things you're going to see happening for young people that might confuse you is, you know, this preoccupation with their appearance. You know, this is when we start worrying about clothes that we're wearing. We go from not caring to bathe and kind of being dirty and stinky to now we want to fit in, and that's a big, again, part of finding who you are is all that fitting in and belonging and seeing who your people are. So you know, the appearance, how we look, plays a role in that. And then, you know, you might also see kiddos showing off more and trying to get attention. You know, maybe how it seems to us, but I really think what they're trying to accomplish here is, you know, achieving acceptance and validation, that, you know, it's awkward and your body is changing. If you remember just feeling like nerdy and weird as your body grew, you know, you really want to feel like it's okay and that you're not weird. So that's really what I think they're trying to accomplish with that, is to just be accepted and liked. You'll also perhaps see your kids start to withdraw and want greater privacy, not want to be sharing with you as much and not have you in their space and talking about their bodies. So at this time, physically, as your body matures and becomes sexually viable for making children and all that stuff that we do later in life, youth are going to have an interest in romantic relationships, and they might start to experiment with dating. And sometimes it may seem really fickle and they can't settle down. But I think this is a good time to, again, like really just kind of feel it out and experiment, because I would imagine most of us were not ready for serious relationship when we were a teenager. And so I think it's okay to let kids kind of see what that's about, and, you know, give them that opportunity to kind of practice while they're still at home and have somebody to kind of help guide them. The next area of development is that I'm going to talk about is cognitive and intellectual development. So this is really about the changes going on in the brain, and I have a video I'm going to show later about that, but there is a tremendous amount of growth and change going on in a teenager's brain. So when kids are little, we expect that they're going to have a lot of learning to do. I mean, when babies are born, they're helpless and they don't know how to do anything, and they're also growing and changing just like a teenager would in their bodies, but their brain is absorbing a lot, and they need to learn and grow that brain. And so you see kids just start to become little people, and we expect that because there's so much to learn when you don't know anything. And so we know their brain is growing and developing thought and being able to go to school and things like that. But when we enter the teenagers, our brain goes through a whole new phase of growth and development. It starts to prune away things that we aren't going to need as much and growing new pathways that we're going to need more for adulthood. Some of the stuff we've learned just sticks in there, but we have a lot of things going on in the brain at this time. And so you're going to see things like maybe their youth are able to spend more time attending to something rather than just bouncing around and playing. Things start to get a little more serious. They start placing greater importance on school, and they hopefully, at some point in their adolescence, are going to start showing more concern about their future. Their brains will change in the way that they think about things. So when kids are little, they think very concretely. They don't have the ability to think about things abstractly. And so you have to be very direct and specific and guide them through those steps of how to do something. And we do a lot of coaching and guiding when kids are little, and that's actually teaching. So we're teaching our kids things when they're little. And so teenagers will start to develop the ability to think about things in a more abstract way, and they may start seeming more rational, like being able to look at how other people might feel and what might happen, project into the future, what might happen if they do this behavior. Something else that you see in teenagers, and it can be kind of like you're butting heads with your teenagers, is that they start to develop a stronger sense of right and wrong. And while that their right may not be the right we want for them at this time, they do start solidifying how they think about things, what is right in their minds versus what is wrong, and what things you should do and shouldn't do. So the things we've been teaching them all along, they're going to start applying this in adolescence. You also see that their communication skills increase, they change in how they can talk about their feelings and reason through things with you. Communication isn't always easy with a young person, but they start to develop this ability to just really talk through things in a new way. And when that happens, it creates greater connection for both the child and the adult in that process. Because now, like when they're babies, we have to guess a lot about how to help them and do what we think is right. But as they become teenagers and better able to express themselves, then we can support them in new ways. And of course, the big one that I hear parents talk about a lot is just how kids don't seem interested in their family anymore, and they don't want to spend time with their parents. And my kids tell me I'm cringy, and they spend a lot of time in their bedrooms. But that's really normal, and it's expected. It's really part of this process, something that has to happen for kids to develop their independence and autonomy. They have to start to separate from their family. And while it can be concerning sometimes, peers and friends become, their opinions and the way that they feel about things become more important to youth. But again, through all of that practice and trial and error, kids are going to figure out what their value system is and grow into their own selves separate from us. Another little bit of humor here. I can really relate to this in my house. Like I said, my kids hang out in their bedroom a lot. And so having a teenager is a little bit like having an angry cat that comes out and just hisses at you when you try to talk to them. And again, this is just good humor. It's perfectly normal and common. And I just tell parents, try not to get too hung up on it and take it personally. It's part of this process where we kind of feel separated and foreign to each other. So the last area of development that I'm going to talk about is a youth's social and emotional development. And so these, again, the cognitive development and the social aspect of maturing, these things aren't always quite as obvious. We may not always understand what's happening internally with someone. And so, again, I just want to share some information with you about what's going on for a young person, that it's normal, it is part of everybody's process. I think us as parents, we're also going through a process of letting go and figuring out how to do this thing that isn't the same as when they were little, because when they're little, they listen to you differently. It might feel like they listen to you better when they're little, and that they do what you ask them to do. And teenagers kind of have lots of emotions and new feelings and thoughts about being under somebody's authority. Whereas little kids might not mind that as much as, as we get older. And I can speak from personal experience myself as an adult. I don't always like being under somebody else's authority. I want to be able to do for myself and think for myself and not have somebody tell me what to do. And that really starts in adolescence. And so, like I said, emotionally, kids are going to start to separate from you. They're going to start to challenge the way you think about things. They're going to challenge the authority that's around them at the school and our social norms and the laws and things like that. You may start hearing them talk about their own ideas about how things should be. And this is just all part of that finding our way. So, they're going to separate from family and the values that you've tried to teach them. I think as much as we can support them through this, I think oftentimes you see kids come back to all of that. Any of you who've raised kids probably know that, yes, it's once we go through that complete maturation process, sometimes we start to think more like our families. We just need to go through it. Again, kids are probably going to spend less time with parents and more time with friends. They have a social life outside of home. They don't necessarily want to socialize with you. Being moody and short-tempered is common. I don't really have a good explanation for this. The video that I'm going to show talks a little bit more about it, and maybe that's something in that we can make sense out of. But, just easily, I think about that hissing cat, sometimes just the littlest thing can kind of set a young person off course. And again, we just learning how to work through those emotions and how to manage them is such a big part of being a teenager, and parents being understanding is so helpful. Definitely, if we're trying to do all of these things that are going to be more adult, and we're not going to have parents doing everything for us forever and thinking about the future, we're going to experience more pressure and stress, young people, teenagers. Teenagers are starting to think about their future and all the things that they need to do and accomplish to get out there on their own. And school becomes really important, not just the social aspect of school, but also the academic aspect of school. And like I said, they're going to challenge norms, status quo, authority, and it's all towards figuring out what they believe and, developing that value system for themselves. So like I said, there is a video I wanted to share with you. And so I think we're going to pull that up and watch a little video about the adolescent brain. again, technically speaking, I'm not really great at this, so bear with me as we get this going. Sometimes figuring the sound out and things can be challenging. Apologize, I'm not sure the sound is working. We tested and played with this earlier. Again, please be patient with me as I figure this out. I wish I was a comedian. I might try to tell you some jokes while I do this. But be thinking, as we get this video going, I hope you'll pull something out of it for yourself that speaks to you and that you can use. In your parenting or in your work with youth. Apologize.
At Harvard Business School, we have a unique approach to online learning. Each course is developed by leaders.
Really bad at this. All right, let's see here. I must have turned my share screen off. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can make this up. Maybe if we can at least hear it.
"20 years ago, science assumed that all the volatile emotions that came with puberty were due to brand new hormones racing through the body. Today, however, we know that the teenage brain undergoes massive neurological changes during puberty. With a better understanding of what's happening in our teen's brain and how it affects behavior, we can better navigate and support our children through adolescence. But before we explain the mysteries of the teenage brain, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, you're welcome to join by clicking that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand corner below. Now let's have a...
All right, so I apologize. You're not going to be able to see the video, I think. We tested this. We thought we had a way to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and play it so that you can hear the information that I wanted to share, because I think it's good information and it probably says it in a better way than I can. And I wish you could see the video because it would be even better that way.
We'll look at what happens in the tween and teen brain. Teenagers get a bad rap. They're all too often perceived as moody, volatile, ticking time bombs. But there are good reasons as to why they react and appear this way. Many believe that hormones are the culprit of wild behavior and emotional outbursts. But the fact is, there's a lot more going on than we originally assumed. The tween brain is like an extremely absorbent sponge, dedicated to learning absolutely everything it can about the world they live in and the people in it. Their brains rapidly develop on a cellular level, making connections with neurons called synapses as their brain forms, learns, and develops. Between the ages of 11 and 17, the teenage brain undergoes a phenomenon during sleep that's integral to their maturation. In a process called synaptic pruning, the frontal cortex decides which neural connections to keep and which to discard. Think of it like spring cleaning for the mind. Those often used connections, like their crush's phone number and cheat codes for their favorite video game, are retained, while inconsequential memories, like remembering to make their beds, can fade into obscurity. This happens through myelination, a process where a specific neural connection in the brain is coated with an electrically conductive fatty substance called myelin. Myelin allows faster recall and better access to memory. Scientists believe that this is the reason why teens naturally understand, learn, and adapt to new technologies and information with relative ease. Teens and parents should take advantage of this critical window of neuroplasticity by encouraging and supporting your teen's interests. If your teen wants to learn an instrument, new sport, or language, for instance, we should encourage further development of their strengths and passions during this pruning phase. Alongside these changes, you may also identify your tween and teen engaging in risky and dangerous activities, which may lead you to believe that your child is becoming defiant, reckless, or irresponsible. This is due to the pruning of the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for risk assessment and planning. While the prefrontal cortex is under renovation, the teen's brain ability to analyze risk, dangers, and consequences appropriately is underdeveloped, and limits their ability to stop themselves from acting on their risky impulses. Instead of trying to control your teen, you can encourage them to take positive risks. Examples of positive risks include giving your child the freedom to walk or catch the bus home from school, or go to a party unchaperoned with friends. Doing so will allow teens to learn consequence, assert independence, develop their identity, problem solve, and grow insight. Positive risks and experiences are critical for healthy development. Next on the list, and personally my favorite and biggest challenge, are moodiness and emotional outbursts. There are a multitude of hormones that the brain produces and releases during puberty, all of which contribute to the healthy functioning and regulation of the body. One of these hormones is called allopregnanolone, which is released into the bloodstream to help us calm down when we experience stress. Scientists have found that this hormone has the opposite effect on teens during puberty. Instead of its intended calming effect, the hormone induces heightened levels of anxiety. This means that even low-level stress can render your teenager overwhelmed, anxious, panicked, or depressed. As part of this process, teen brains are learning to identify and differentiate complex emotions and facial expressions. This can often result in teens misinterpreting your face, thoughts, and emotions, causing them to lash out and have an emotional outburst. Again, this isn't personal. They're just trying to process and develop these critical interpersonal skills, and we need to understand that they aren't going to necessarily interpret things the way you intend to. We should aim to approach adolescence armed with knowledge of the changes occurring in a teen's developing brains and bodies, and how those changes are displayed in common teen behavior. This will help us to practice compassion, patience, and kindness, and better equip parents to support their teen during these emotionally charged, turbulent times. If you've enjoyed this video or learned something new, please give us a like and let us know in the comments if you've had any success deciphering the teenage mind. If you know any parents that would benefit from this video, please share and click that.
All right, so you may not be able to share this link or this video with anybody, but it will be, if you want to write down the link, I think it's there on the slide and you can go and look at it. Again, I apologize that it isn't there for you to watch today, but hopefully what you heard would be helpful. I'm going to if we could chat, again, we'd have conversations about the challenges of parenting and, talk and share thoughts and ideas and figure out how to navigate all of these things that are going on with an adolescent. So I'm also, because I'm not very tech savvy, I'm trying to figure out if you can still see my slideshow, because I'm going to go and move on to what's left here of our slideshow. So here we go. So what I heard in the video was just about how much there's going on in the brain and in our development at adolescence. And so one thing that's encouraging to me is that adolescents, teenagers, youth in this stage are eager to learn. They're trying to take in all of this information that's around them, and they want to learn everything, he said. So it can be a really good time to guide your kiddos in a direction that they might want to go, that could develop new skills and talents. He suggested encouraging passions. Obviously, some passions are safer than others, and we want to put some boundaries and parameters around what our youth are doing, but encouraging things that are safe out there for them to experience and learn, because we all, especially adolescents, learn through experience, through trial and error, succeeding and failing, and trying again. So another thing that I've noticed about teens, and even myself as a teen, that sleep is important. So the brain needs sleep, and so you'll sometimes see teenagers sleeping more than they did when they were younger, and that's critical to the growth of the brain, is what I heard this video say. And also because of all the changes going on, that some of the things that kiddos know how to do and have done easily, and now they might not do it as much, which can be so aggravating. My kid knows how to clean their room. Why do they not clean their room? But there's a lot going on in that brain of theirs, and all of it is part of the process. It has to happen. A word he used in there was turbulent, and I thought that was kind of funny, because I think when I think about my teenage years, I consider them to be quite tumultuous. It wasn't easy for me as a teenager, and I know it wasn't easy for my parents to parent me as a teenager. And so I just think and encourage parents to keep in mind that it's hard for all of you. It's hard for your kid. It's hard for you, and we just got to stick with it. So probably what parents would want to know most, if we were chatting it up and having a conversation about all the things you're experiencing with your young person, you'd want tips and tricks for, how do I handle this? How do I handle that? Sometimes just sharing stories with each other is helpful, because other parents, knowing that you're not the only one going through it, and the reason you're not the only one going through it is because everybody goes through it, because it's normal for adolescents to do these things. So I think if there's one thing I could have as my main message here today, is keep in mind all of this is normal and has to happen. Obviously, we still want to keep our kids safe, but these things, they occur because this is part of a maturation process. So I have just a few tips here that I've written down in the slide. I have other things here that I don't know if they're on my slide, but I'm going to read some things. There's some good information that I was able to pull up online to kind of keep in mind and to help as parents, and my last slide will show the links to sites that I think are good sites for you to look at as parents to give you some tips and pointers that you can use after today's discussion. But so, I mean, some positive parenting tips that I have on these. I don't know if you can see this, but they're just tip sheets for parents that I pulled off of the CDC's website. And so they have positive parenting tips on here and information about safety and healthy bodies, and just some general information about what you're going to see as a child develops through each of these stages. But some of the tips that I liked was, being honest and direct. If you have concerns, it's awkward to talk to our teens. Like I said, my kids call me cringy because as a counselor, I talk about lots of stuff, and I'm pretty comfortable talking to every teenager about lots of stuff. And so I bring up topics that are not comfortable for my kids, but it's important to have those conversations, to be having them, start young. I think that's one of these tips that one of these pages talks about, that you need to have those conversations starting, as you can see, probably before the tween years that start around 9 or 10. Get used to it and comfortable doing that, and have those conversations and have them frequently. It's not a one-time deal that we can just share this information with our kids and think they're going to retain it. So keep having those conversations. Take an interest in your child. Get involved in school and encouraging their school activities. It may feel like they're trying to push you away. There's a real push-pull thing going on for adolescents. I think they're just as confused as we are. They don't want us, but they want us just as much at the same time. But to look cool, or to go through this process, you don't necessarily always connect with your parents. And so I really encourage parents to take advantage of the openings, the opportunities that our kids provide us. If a kid comes to you and wants to talk, drop it. Be ready to talk when they initiate conversation, and follow their lead. Lots of good stuff can come up in those things when kids are ready to talk to us. I've been doing community-based services and in-home services, as well as clinic-based services over the years, and a great time to have conversation is when kids are in the car, because you're not sitting face to face, and it doesn't feel as heavy and serious when you're sitting side by side in a car. So that's a good time to have conversations, just checking in. Yes, my kids sometimes cringe about it, tell me I ask too many questions, but I do it anyway. Obviously, try to be as positive as you possibly can. If you're feeling negative about things, it's going to create a lot more negativity. Your kids are they're going to sense that, and they're going to engage in more negative behavior. As positive as you can be is a really good place to be. Make sure to comment on kids' strengths and praise them, and tell them what you love about them, and celebrate their successes. It's hard not to want to teach our kids, and so when we teach, we're often critical and we point out things that they could do better. But kids need to really hear, teenagers really need to hear what they're doing well, and how you value and accept them. Remember, I said that when they're seeking attention, they're really seeking acceptance. Try not to do the guilt thing or the pressure thing with them. I'm not always great at that, because I have a hard time letting go, but allowing your teen to pull away without feeling guilty. In the video, he talked about not controlling. The more you control, I think the more you get that rebellion. And so being able to listen to their ideas without judgment, and encouraging what you feel good about, finding something that you think you're comfortable with and that's safe and that you can support, finding those things. And obviously just keeping a sense of humor. Can't take it too seriously. Otherwise we just get pent up in all of this frustration and anxiety. And so, finding opportunity to just have fun and to find some humor in some of this crazy stuff that you're all going through. So here is my resources and links. These are the sites that I went to gather information for my talk today, and they'll be available to you probably through viewing this in the future. And these are good places to go. These links were pretty much what I pulled together to talk to you about today, and really good information that is credible, I would say. And so, wrapping up, I was asked to make sure to provide information about how to contact me if you wanted to. Like Cindy said in the introduction, I work at Connections, a Center for Healthy Families in Montesano. We offer parent education. So, we have some knowledge about what works for kids. And then also we have a mental health program for kiddos who have experienced some hard things. So this is how you can reach me if you were to want to. I'm going to end my slideshow. And yeah, so I think that's where I'm done tonight. I just want to thank you very much for tuning in. Because you're here, it tells me that you're committed and involved, and I just want to give you props for that. Working on parenting is always a great thing, and I just want to thank Summit Pacific also for inviting me, even though it wasn't necessarily something I was seeking to do. I'm glad that I got an opportunity to share tonight, and I hope it was useful to you. Thank you so much.